our next session is with Ashwin Kadri, who's Vice President of Testing Automation at Regions Bank, and Ashwin is joining us from Birmingham in Alabama. Thank you very much for joining us, Ashwin. Your topic today is frictionless test automation metrics. So a key topic on our theme of the challenges that financial firms face in accelerating app delivery for CI/CD and the potential that automation offers, but how do you benchmark your progress? Ashwin is going to be using a live poll in a couple of minutes. He'll tell you a little bit about that himself, of course, but I just want to flag that up because we want everybody to be ready to vote. So please be ready to contribute to that. And following this session, we'll end the session with questions, so please have those ready as well for Ashwin. There'll be a break, short break, and an opportunity for you to visit our sponsors exhibition hall. And you can do that by clicking to the right of your screen where it says virtual exhibition. So for the next half hour, we're with Ashwin Kadri. Ashwin, I'll hand over to you to introduce yourself and start your presentation.
Thank you, Matthew. Let me share my screen. Awesome. All right. Hello and welcome. They say you cannot improve what you cannot measure. I am Ashwin Kadri from Regions Bank, and I am super excited to take you through the journey of creating frictionless automation metrics from concept to reality. First, let me get the disclaimer out of the way. So this states that the information presented in this session are my opinion and not formal opinions of, nor binding on Regions Bank. To start this session, I'd like to get some information from you. What tools do you currently use to view or track the testing automation metrics in your organization today? The options are on your screen. So as Matthew said, so you can go to the on-air portal and submit your responses. So I'll give a minute for you to submit your response on the on-air portal. All right, I can see your opinions. I can see that most of the people are using a test management tool or some kind of custom solution. That's good. There are a lot of people who are doing manual data gathering as well. So and then a small section of people who are not tracking any metrics, which is a good trend. So for folks who are not, who are using the test management tool or have a custom solution, you can gain insight into the newer metrics that you can start tracking and get some ideas into how you can improve the solution. And for people who are tracking metrics or doing it manually, who are not tracking metrics or doing it manually, can understand the process of coming up with an automated solution to start tracking metrics. This session is organized into 4 segments. The first one is the idea or the concept. So it explains the why we came up with the metrics database and dashboard. The second segment explains the metric solution. It explains the how. We go into details of like what are the key design principles, how did the architecture evolve, and then once we started seeing metrics, like what are the things that we found. I will then demonstrate metrics that we track and find useful. And again, as Matthew said, during the course of this session, if you have any questions, please click on the live Q&A link on the on-air portal. I'll answer these questions during the Q&A segment in the last 5 to 10 minutes. So my role is to empower teams across Regions Bank with knowledge, tools, and frameworks to be effective in testing automation, resulting in faster time to market and improved quality. It is somewhat relatable to the caveman with wheels. He is trying to make work more efficient and faster. After helping many teams with a set of wheels, the caveman would have wondered, how many tribes are using my wheels? How much effort did it help save? And if he was analytical, he'd be asking, what was the what was the length of each trip, right? And then what's the load on each trip? The caveman evolved, and now we have the testing automation engineer. As I said earlier, we help drive testing automation. After supporting several teams with testing automation, we wanted to know if teams are using testing automation effectively. Are teams running tests regularly? How many tests are triggered from the CI/CD pipeline? Are there teams that have stopped using testing automation? We also wanted to know if these project metrics could be rolled up at an org level, right? Can we do that? Quick feedback is the holy grail of continuous testing. So we wanted to understand the factors that impact test cycle time. We wanted to know how long the tests take to execute. Are these tests running in parallel? If so, what is the level of parallelism? Are we using API tests? What is the proportion of API tests to the UI tests? Which projects runs the fastest? And why do they do that? Right? We wanted to understand all this. And also we wanted to know, like, we made a lot of investments in the testing infrastructure. So are we using them optimally? So we use scalable test execution infrastructure like Selenium Grid or Sauce Labs. We use test management tools like Tricentis Qtest or Azure DevOps, and then multiple testing automation tools and frameworks. So are we using them to the fullest? We also wanted to understand, like, are our tests mimicking production usage? Are we using the browsers and mobile devices that most of our consumers use, right? So we want to test on them. So we wanted to know how our tests, are they mimicking the production usage or not? So yes, we had a lot of questions. And to find answers, we went to the drawing board. As we designed a solution, we had these key design principles in mind. The solution should be frictionless. So we shouldn't have to ask the teams for any information. So, like, hey, how many tests did you run today? How many passed? How long did they take to execute? Right? I shouldn't be asking those questions. It should be frictionless. The user should have no additional steps to generate metrics. It should be seamless. The second design principle was that the metrics derived should be informative. It should be simple, it should be easy to understand, and it should provide useful information to the user. And most importantly, the metrics should be actionable. One should be able to look at the metrics and say, oh, this is where we are, and this is what we need to do to make progress. At the core of our architecture is the metrics database. It is the central repository of all test execution information. Good database design is the foundation for great metrics. This is where you depict the relationship between a test case, a test suite, a project, and how various pieces of information, the test execution information that you're gathering, are related to each other. So we added custom code to the region's testing automation framework, which was built on Selenium and NUnit. So we added this custom code to call the test management APIs, test management tool APIs, to log the testing automation results to the respective test cases in the tools. So this is one portion that we did. So using this, people were able to derive like useful project testing metrics. So at Regions, we use Tricentis Qtest and Azure DevOps for test management. We also added more custom code to log these results plus additional testing execution information onto the metrics database. This is what helped us to like derive useful metrics. So this metrics database was then fed into Power BI for performing analytics and visualizing metrics. Power BI dashboards were linked to our Confluence page for consistent distribution of information. So when you look at this architecture, we have the test management tools that provide metrics at a project level. And we have the SQL metrics database and the Power BI dashboard that provides information at a program or an org level, which can be drilled down into a project level metrics. Initially, when we started reporting, right, we only reported the web UI testing execution information to the metrics database. When we wanted to report the API testing execution information, we had to redesign the database to consider various types of tests. What if I start writing database tests? What if I start writing voice tests? Things like that. So we had to expand that. We then wanted to expand to like non-web applications, right? Why only limit ourselves to web applications? We have to test a lot of non-web applications as well. So we wanted to expand to that, for which we were using other testing automation tools and frameworks. So we had to make changes in our architecture to accommodate this. So instead of repeating the same code for reporting results, so we decided to pull it out and make them common reporting APIs, so that different tools and frameworks can call that API whenever they wanted to report results into the test management tools and the metrics database. Now we are logging all the test execution information to the database. We were excited to see the information starting to flow and trends appearing. So what did the trends reveal to us? One of the first things that we noticed was that the testing automation engineers do not like to test on IE. They love Chrome. I'm sure that's what you notice across the industry as well. What else did we find out? So we got insight into the attributes of teams that have really quick test cycles, right? So these teams write short and focused tests. Their applications generally allow for multiple sessions, which allow the team to run tests in parallel. And generally, these teams run in high levels of parallelism. They leverage the testing execution, scalable test execution infrastructure that is available to them and run in high LOP. These teams also have higher ratio of API tests. API tests are generally much quicker when they execute when compared to the UI tests. And this allowed them to run more tests from the CI pipeline. So these are some of the attributes that we saw of teams that had quick cycle times. On the contrary, the opposite was true for teams that have longer cycle times. So these teams had very long test cases, often repeating validations, checking the same thing over and over again. So every test case, you have to log in, validate the login is right, and then go somewhere else, do that, and then get into the core of the validation, right? So that's what we were observing. And also, these were some of these applications were single sign-on, therefore not allowing for multiple sessions. And hence the teams could not run these tests in parallel. That's why it was taking a long time. Metrics also provided an indication of health of testing automation. So we could know how frequently the teams are running these test cases, what was their pass rate, and abrupt changes in trend indicated that they might need some help. We got insight into how people use these testing infrastructure. So this information helped us predict peak usage, the adequacy of licenses. Do we have enough licenses to cover for the upcoming release? And in many cases, it helped us in contract negotiation and saving some dollars for the bank. So it's now time for demo. This is typically the time when things start going wrong. So I'm praying to the demo gods to be kind on me today. So let's quickly shift to the demo. You share. Let me know if you're seeing the new screen. Okay. All right, so awesome, that's good. All right, so in this screen, just give me a minute. All right, on this screen, what we are seeing is the browser information. So this is the metrics dashboard that we have displayed on the Confluence page. And we are seeing what is the browser usage. So the blue, deep blue is the Chrome. Then we have IE, Firefox, things like that. So if you want to see which projects are using Chrome, so just click on that, and then which projects are using IE. So I'm able to see that. Information, I can like slice by months. So if I want to see in May, what was the spread like, right? So I can get that information. The second information that I wanted to show you was the execution environment, right? So how many people are using the execution environment that we have? So our tests run locally. Are we running on the Selenium grid? Or are we running on Sauce Labs? So if I want to see which projects are using Sauce Labs, like I can click on this. Which projects are running locally? There seem to be a lot of projects running locally as well. And then which projects use the grid? So I'm able to see all that information here. And then again, month-wise split, and then there is a group-wise split as well. So I wanted to know how is consumer division doing, different groups in the organization doing. So I can get all that information here. We can also understand like at what times are the people, the teams executing their tests. So we find that around 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. is the peak. But then we really want the execution infrastructure to be utilized across around the hour, right? So we'd want to see that these bars grow longer. So if I want to see like, okay, what times the grid is utilized. So I find that the grid is utilized across the hour. So you can see that like even after 5 p.m., so people are continuing to use the grid, which means that the offshore teams are teams using teams on a different time zone, right? They're continuing to use the grid infrastructure. If I want to see Sauce Labs, again, so this is limited to only USRs, but then we'd want to see that more spread more across around the clock, right? So all this kind of useful information can be gained. So we also see that Monday and Tuesday, most of the tests are executed, and then towards Friday, they're slacking. So for some reason, right? Um, that's on the testing execution information. Then we go to execution status, right? This might look like a confusing modern art, but then this information is useful for us to see which teams have continuously use their testing automation suite. So for example, this particular project, every month they run a set of tests that they're pretty consistent. Whereas if I go to this project, so they only started from June. So what happened before June? Why didn't they use that? So these are good points for us as a center of excellence for us to understand and reach out to the teams to provide them appropriate help that is needed. And in some cases, we see the opposite trend wherein they were continuing to use and suddenly they stopped running the test. And we had seen that like around 6 or 7 months ago. When that happened, we found that the automation champion in the team, he had quit. So we had to reach out to the team, tell them, hey, please continue to execute your tests. So that way we are able to get help which is more relevant at the right time, right? And on these pages, so here I can see what is the proportion of tests that are run from the CI pipeline versus the ad hoc tests. So this proportion is important for us because we want more and more tests to be triggered from the CI pipeline. And when we started the year, this was around 2 or 3%, and currently it's at 34%. So we are happy to see that trend grow. Similarly, the proportion of API test to UI test, right? So here we are at 26%, which means that 26% of the overall tests that we have are executed are API tests, which is really good. It makes the tests more faster, and it helps to improve test cycle time, right? So we want to see this trend improve as well. Again, I can get a month-wise split, see what happened in each month, right? And then get to a particular project, see what happened there, and all of that information can be done, right? So this is what I was talking about, the health of the project. So this particular chart is what we use, the modern art chart, or the ribbon chart is what we use to assess the health of the projects that we are working with and reach out to them if we need any help. We can now get into the test duration. So this is again interesting. So earlier we were talking about test cycle times. So what we want to do is to make sure that the teams write short and focused tests, right? So we want to see a lot of tests that can run under a minute. So here we are seeing a healthy trend, 58% of the tests that run under a minute, and then a decreasing trend for 1 to 2 minutes, 2 to 5 minutes, and then over 5 minutes, right? At the top, we see a trend line month on month. So month on month, we typically want to see the green bars increase in size, and the dotted black line, which is the average script duration, that to come down. So that's a trend that we'd want to see. So from the information that we are gathering, we are able to understand what is the average test duration for each of the test case, and then get this metrics. And again here, so I can see like running locally, right? What's the trend look like? So local tests run much faster. That's what we found. On the grid, the trend is completely opposite. So projects that take longer typically use the grid because they're single sign-on, and then they have longer test cases. So that's what this particular trend indicates. And on SaaS Labs, it's kind of like we have a good percentage of tests that are running under 2 minutes, but then under 1 minute, it's a lower percentage. So, and we can see which of these projects are these, right? So we want to see more projects that are having tests in the green. So the size of the ball indicates the number of tests in the test suite. And then like this, where they stand indicates like how quickly the tests execute. Each of the tests execute in average. So these projects are the projects that would need help. So we'd reach out to them, try to tell them saying that, hey, how can you break down your test cases into smaller test cases? Whereas these are the projects that ideally use a lot of APIs to make the tests much faster, right? So this is, again, a useful chart that we use. And then finally, we have an extension of that. So instead of just looking at the test case, what if I want to look at the entire test suite? So this gives indication of like how long is the test cycle and what is the average level of parallelism that these teams use. So for example, this project runs within a minute and it has 150 tests. Of course, these are all API tests, so that's the reason why it's so fast. Other projects take around 10 minutes or something like that. And our intention is to continuously keep getting it faster and faster. So we are trying to use various techniques to get them to under like 10 minutes. So using these metrics. So that's what we do. Right. So that's what I have in terms of the demo.
That's great. So we do have some questions, Ashwin.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got only 3 minutes to go. So can I fire away?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much for that. We've got some really interesting questions. I wanted to leave time for those. Then after that, we're going into a break, and a break that we put in there for delegates to visit the sponsor exhibit hall. Can I ask everybody, please check your meeting hub to the right of the screen. Just click on it, and can you just check whether you have any meeting requests there, because we do want people to network and mix as much as possible in those breaks. But back to the questions. One question, Ashwin, are all these metrics in real time?
Yes,
Okay.
they are not completely real time. So this, we refresh the information. We have an option of refreshing once every day, once every week. We selected the option of refreshing once every week. It's not that we need up-to-date information right now to make informed decisions. So it's a trend that we rely on. So once every week works for us because it's a lot of information that we are pulling. So once every week.
Okay. Another question. Great reporting architecture, Ashwin. Usually achieving this level of sophisticated metrics and reporting is difficult. Difficult to achieve when PMO and projects are tight on testing budgets. Any key challenges faced and takeaways, learnings from the challenges faced along the journey at Nations Bank?
The challenges in terms of like what we did was we started small. We didn't really have this when we started. We just thought of saying, okay, let's just do it for Selenium test, right? How the metrics information would look like. So start small, and then you start enhancing that. You definitely reach that. And as I said earlier, right, good database design, that's the key. So once you have scalable design, so you'd be able to slice and dice the data in the manner in which you want later.
Okay. Final question then. Great presentation. How many systems are integrated for these analytics? And is there an element also of manual testing? So I guess the question is, you know, the number of platforms within the firm Nations Bank are integrated in this, and what is still done manually?
Yeah, this does not include the manual testing portion. So let me get that right off.
Sure.
But then there are multiple automation frameworks that we have internally, and then we have multiple tools. So all these tools call the reporting APIs that we have created, which report into these metrics databases. So we have at least 5 different flavors of the frameworks and multiple automation tools that are calling this.
Okay, great. Well, look, we've got to end there. Thank you very much. We're going into the networking break, so maybe you can check your inbox as well, just to see if anybody's looking to meet with you and take the conversation further. But meantime, Ashwin, thank you very much. Great presentation.
Thanks a lot, Matthew. Thank you.
Thank you.